What's up, y'all? It's Cactus Dave. I want to talk to you guys about the fourth turning and how we're all living in it. Been just doing some reading and looking into what's been going on in society and in life and whatnot. But came across this thing called the fourth turning, which essentially is like every 100 years you go through kind of like a big transition in the world, and that's usually when things seem crazy. So right now, it feels like we're living in like some of the most wild times imaginable in our lifetimes, but it's really like, I wouldn't say it's nothing new, because I think things are very new and different, but it's like the same kind of functions and mechanisms in the world with Trump and just the economy and you know, everything that we're experiencing right now with the tariffs and, you know, you name it, it's all there. But yeah, I mean, right now we got presidents dropping meme coins. We have our White House turning into a car dealership. A couple years ago, obviously, we had to shut down the world. There's so much civil unrest, and that's just like a normal thing, actually. Maybe not normal to us, but it's kind of a normal cycle in the circle of life and of society. And it's called the fourth turn, where there's like just massive change that happens. So think about stuff like the 1950s, right? You had you know, the economic boom after World War II, and things are going good. Everyone can afford a house. Even, you know, the guy who delivered the milkman had a 3-bedroom, you know, 1,700 square foot house and was doing just fine, and things like that. And then, you know, you have like the 60s and 70s and, you know, the 80s, where like people are starting to question stuff. You got like the late 80s and 90s when the distrust happens, right? We have the Patriot Act, and we have mass surveillance, and terrorism is a big thing, and we got the economic crashes, and it like has kind of just like hit a boiling point where there's a huge shift, and then there's just like a systematic reset. And everyone's talking about like late stage capitalism, right? Like that's kind of the buzzword of the day, late stage capitalism. And to me, like, just at face value, the idea of late stage means like it's kind of to me, like, our economic system feels like a dying star, you know what I mean? So yeah, so we're kind of in this transition, and societies reach a boiling point and a breaking point. Some of the good examples were, you know, people like George Washington in the United States. There was kind of this fourth turn, and people needed a new leader. People needed new, you know, something different, and we picked that guy. But then, or Abraham Lincoln, right? He's like, okay, let's nix this slavery stuff. Let's cut it all out here. But then you have like people like Napoleon or Germany, you know, happen, where these, you know, authoritarians come in, they start wrecking stuff, and things go downhill. But the common thread between all these things is the idea of like an authoritarian leader who has like a huge hold or a huge amount of power in the world and over the system. And we're getting to that point where, you know, I don't think Trump is quite there, but he's definitely trying, right? Like, I don't know, this isn't a video about like the anti-Trump stuff or like anything like that, I guess. Like, I don't think he's a great dude. I don't really think he's very competent, but that's not really the purpose of what I'm trying to talk about. Really, what I'm trying to talk about is just seeing the pattern that's kind of happening right now. So when it goes good, you know, like, we have a fourth turn, things change, and we get people like FDR with the New Deal, or George Washington, or, you know, I don't know, even maybe like, I guess Nelson Mandela might be an example, where there's kind of this huge shift and change in societal culture and in world culture. But then you have the opposite, where authoritarians and fascists and whatnot take over the power, but in one way or another, depending on who you choose as your leader, it's going to go one way or the other. But I think the progress is going to be accelerated because of the power that this person gets, you know. So that's where we're headed. I think that's I don't know, kind of the place we're going to. But I think the one thing that we can all agree on, whether or not we whether or not we fall on the same political line, or have the same values or the same perspectives on life and what creates a good society, is I think the one thing that we can all kind of agree on is the fact that, there is something in the air where there needs to be a huge shift. And I think the signs are obvious that we are going to see a huge change in the next, 5-10 years or something like that. Just simply, or even the next couple years, simply because like every time you turn on the news, which I don't tend to watch the news very much, but every time you turn on the news or try to watch something that has to do with world events, like it's either war or recession or corruption or unlawful deportations or whatever it may be, it all just seems messed up, and it feels like we're getting hit from a million different angles. And with that, you have people trying to consolidate power, like, all the tech bros now, they're all getting in good, not because in my perspective, not because they believe Trump or the administration is for the best interest of the people, but they're cozying up to these guys because they see that there's an opportunity to see some power, or there's somebody with immense power, which I think Trump has, like someone with immense power, and it's like, you better get on board because these relationships can benefit you, Like Trump did this thing with like the meme coin that he dropped, where like basically like the, biggest 200 holders could get dinner with him, That's some crazy stuff right there. That's a lot of power, because that's going to boost that meme coin, that caca coin, big time. And the people with the most money and the most power, they might be like, hey, if I boost this coin, what happens if you give me, some sort of, you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing. I give you some money, I make sure you're making money, and maybe you can put some things in place that make sure that I make even more money. You know what I mean? So I guess my only thing is I can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but my hope is that we pick the right leader for the fourth turn, because it can get really, really ugly and really bad. And I feel like just in history, we get the good outcome just as often as we get the bad outcome, Like for every Abraham Lincolns, there's Mussolini's, you know what I mean? So it's tough, and it's a dice roll, but the good news is, I guess the comforting thing is that it's happened before, and it's going to happen again, and we've survived all of them so far. Now we could be playing with house money. We might crash out this time, but hopefully we got enough people with enough common sense, which common sense doesn't even exist if you think about it. What does common sense even mean? What is common sense in China, and common sense in the United States, and common sense in Italy? I don't know if any of those things are the same thing, right? But anyways, that's besides the point. If anybody has, I guess I hope that your average Joe and Jill and Jack and Janie have enough in the empathy tank and kindness tank and intelligence tank to move forward, regardless of what the ramifications of the next fourth turn is going to be. So, and I think the good news is, or the hopeful news after a fourth turn where things change and there's a reset of the whole system, is usually that leads to some good stuff too. You think about after World War II, there was huge times of prosperity and whatnot. And, I'm hopeful that you kind of get through the wilderness and you find some goodness and some positivity and some productive relationships and situations within society. So I think we just gotta hold out for that and have that perspective in the future. So anyways, what are your guys' thoughts? What do you think is going to happen in the future? What do you think of the fourth turn? Am I just a fake philosopher? The answer is probably yes, but what do you guys think? Call into the voicemail hotline and I'll feature you in a future video. The number is 619-800-5622. If you wouldn't mind liking and commenting and subscribing, that'd be awesome too, because it really helps me out a lot. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Tell me what you think. And yeah, I guess the moral of the whole story is simply just maybe just try to keep a sense of humor and stay human. So, all right, peace out.